It's been nearly 6 months since the release of Pokémon Sun and Moon, and there has not been a single hint of a brand new Pokémon game. Seriously, 6 months, that has absolutely flown by. So the Pokémon community have taken it upon themselves to speculate on what could be coming next. The popular theory within the community is that a game titled something along the lines of Pokémon Stars or Pokémon Eclipse, basically a follow-up game to Pokémon Sun and Moon, is going to be released on the Nintendo Switch. And any day now, it's going to be announced. The other half of the Pokemon community are expecting and demanding Pokemon Diamond and Pearl remakes, and would either like them as a swan song to the Nintendo 3DS, basically a last hurrah for the system, or they'd like to see it on the Nintendo Switch as the very first Pokemon game on that system. I think that's unlikely. I don't think we're going to be seeing Pokemon Diamond and Pearl remakes this year, at least. I don't think we're going to be seeing any main series Pokemon game at all this year, but I'm going to be talking about that a bit later on in this video. Here's why. The first reason why is quite simply it's too soon after the release of Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, the remakes of Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire. So let's go through the timeline just a little bit. In 2004, Pokemon Red and Blue were remade in the form of Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green. It was first released in Japan in January of 2004 and then made its way to North America, Europe, over the course of the year. Fast forward 5 years, Pokemon Gold and Silver remakes were announced in the form of Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver on May 7th. May 7th being a fundamental date. Remember that date for just a second. The games were then released in September of 2009 in Japan. For the purpose of this video, we're going to be going off the first release of the games. They then made their way to North America and Europe in the spring of 2010, but that's not important for this video. Pokemon games are generally released worldwide now. Fast forward another 5 years, you might be noticing a little pattern here. May 7th, 2014, precisely 5 years after Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver were announced, Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire were announced. The games were then subsequently released in November of 2014. Do you spot the pattern? Every 5 years, a Pokemon game is remade. We started with Red and Green in 2004, Gold and Silver in 2009, Ruby, Sapphire in 2014. All signs point to Pokemon Diamond and Pearl being remade in 2019. In fact, I'd hazard a bet that the remakes will be announced on May 7th, 2019. But I'm not going to throw away my money like that. I might be incorrect. Now, of course, this pattern might just be something that is fabricated in my head. It might not really be a pattern. However, if you're expecting Pokemon Diamond and Pearl remakes to be announced and released on the Nintendo Switch this year, you might be a little bit disappointed by what you're going to hear next. Game Freak typically like to wait until a console has a little bit of an install base. Essentially, what I'm trying to say is that Game Freak like to wait until the console has a lot of systems sold, so they have more of an audience to market to. The very first Pokemon games for the Nintendo DS, coincidentally Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, didn't come out until 2 years into the Nintendo DS's life cycle in 2006. Another coincidence, another little pattern here, is that Pokemon X and Y, the very first Pokemon games on the Nintendo 3DS, didn't come out until 2 years into the Nintendo 3DS's life cycle. As of the release of this video, the Nintendo Switch has only been out for 2 months, so could we be waiting another 2 years until we see a Pokemon game on the Nintendo Switch? I don't think so, but it's definitely not going to be this year. And fingers crossed, I hope I'm wrong saying that. I would adore a Pokemon game to be on the Nintendo Switch. Being able to play a game in anything more than 240p, anything that isn't on a tiny screen, would be absolutely fantastic. I'm just trying not to get my hopes up. And all these quote-unquote leaks of a Pokemon Stars that could be coming very soon, I don't know. I don't trust them right now. What do I expect this year? I do expect the Virtual Console releases of Pokemon Gold, Silver and Crystal to make their way to the Nintendo 3DS eShop. essentially Pokemon Bank, or was it Pokemon Sun and Moon? I can't remember exactly. Either way, one of them was data mined and found data for 3 more games that supports the little Game Boy symbol. Essentially, this Game Boy symbol is used when a Pokemon is transported via Pokemon Bank from the Virtual Console releases of Pokemon Red, Blue, Yellow, and Green. 3 more games being supported by that symbol essentially confirms Virtual Console releases of Gold, Silver, and Crystal definitely being planned to me. And I would be very surprised if those games didn't make their way onto the Virtual Console this year, as the Nintendo 3DS's life cycle is coming to a very slow but steady end. And I also expect the Pokémon Tournament, what would it be, remaster deluxe version, to make its way to the Nintendo Switch in around September of this year. Essentially, there's a lot of content that is only available on the arcade version in Japan. Pokemon like Darkrai, these characters would fit perfectly in a Pokémon Tournament remaster re-release, whatever it's going to be, on the Nintendo Switch. Rumors have been circulating that it could be coming out in September. Keep your eyes peeled to this channel. Maybe I'll make a video about it if it's announced. But yeah, if you get one thing from this video, don't expect Pokemon Diamond and Pearl remakes until 2019. At least in my opinion, and I'm just a terrible Pokemon YouTuber. I could be incorrect. I hope I am. We could be seeing a brand new Pokemon game announcement within the next couple of weeks, maybe before E3. I'm going to be talking about that in tomorrow's video. Leave me a comment down below whether you think there's going to be Pokemon Diamond and Pearl remakes sooner rather than later, and what you expect this year. A like on this video would be super appreciated. It'd be incredibly motivating after my very long hiatus from the channel. Things have been incredibly rough in real life, and I'm not going to talk about it in this video. Might talk about it in a future video. I'm okay, and thank you if you're watching this video. It means the freaking world. I'd do the old corny 1,000 likes to be really appreciated for another video tomorrow thing that I used to do last year, but no, I'll upload tomorrow anyway. But a like would be really appreciated. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.